Chandi Prasad Bhatt, he led the villagers into the forest. He made a group of villagers. He told them what is the actual problem that is happening. The main reason for this particular silent valley to gain attention was because of the successive struggle of the native people against the proposed hydroelectric project in the valley. So the forest is divided into many areas. So when you travel, the area that you see, that is not the core area. Hello everyone, a warm welcome to today's session on Environmental Studies for second semester B.Ca. I'm Dr. Divya, Environmental Studies faculty, Vidhyaashram First Grade College, Temple of Excellence, MYSURU. So in today's session, let us continue with studying Unit 7, that is Human Communities and the Environment. So in this session, let us concentrate on environmental movements, wherein there are three environmental movements, that is the Chipko Movement, the Silent Valley Movement and the Bisnois of Rajasthan. So how these people contributed towards saving the environment, that is what we will learn today. So talking about environmental movements. So what are environmental movements? Environmental movements are acts or events conducted by a group of people who have similar interests towards safeguarding the environment in order to prevent it from getting depleted or vanishing from this earth. So that is environmental movement. So people having similar interests, they join together to organize various programs wherein they can contribute towards saving the environment. So these are environmental movements. So there are three environmental movements that have been mentioned in your syllabus of EVS. That is Chipko Movement, the Silent Valley Movement and the Bisnois of Rajasthan. So we'll study about all those three. So talking about Chipko Movement. So Chipko Movement, as the name itself suggests, it is a Hindi word. Chipko meaning to stick onto something. So here people sticked onto the tree, meaning they embrace the tree, they hug the tree and they very tight in such a way that protecting the tree, preventing it from being cut down. So it was introduced in the Himalayan region of Uttarakhand in the early 1970s. So in this particular region, that is the Himalayan region of Uttarakhand, lots of industrial logging was taking place because those logs were used for various manufacturing purposes. But this logging, that is excessive logging, actually led to a lot of problem, especially during the monsoon time. So during severe monsoon time, what happened? Because of extensive logging, it resulted in floods, because we have learned in the previous session that trees help to prevent floods by reducing the runoff water, flow of the running water, right? But here what happened was, because of excessive logging of trees or cutting of trees by the industries in the Uttarakhand region, during severe monsoon, it resulted in flood, killing 200 people in that particular region. And that is when people thought, if we keep quiet, it is not going to help. So therefore, we need to protect the forest from destruction by these industrial logging sectors. So that is what they thought. So that is a time when they thought of a movement. So the name Chipko was not given then. Only it was actually thought like we have to do something to save nature, and it was taught in the year 1970. And the origin of Chipko actually took place in 1973. So here what happened was, the forest department gave permission to a particular logging company, that is to Dashauli Gram Swarajya Sangha, which is a local cooperative organization that is based in Chamoli district of Uttarakhand. So there was a local organization which was called as Dashauli Gram Swarajya Sangha. So this organization was in Chamoli district of Uttarakhand of Himalayan region in the year 1973. So the forest department, they allotted ash trees to this particular cooperative organization in order to make agricultural equipments or agricultural implements, such as for tilling purpose, for plowing purpose. Various agricultural implements were made using wood. So for that particular purpose, they actually gave permission to cut the trees. So again here what happened, severe logging took place of the ash trees, and therefore again the people were put to problem, where because of the, especially during the monsoon season, because of the flooding condition. So at that time, one particular person of that village called as Chandi Prasad Bhatt. So Chandi Prasad Bhatt, he led the villagers into the forest. He made a group of villagers. He told them what is the actual problem that is happening, and he told them, or he persuaded them to safeguard the forest, and he made groups and led these people of that particular village of Chamoli district, wherein he actually led them into the forest and encourage the people to embrace or to hug the trees in order to prevent logging. So when the other people who came to log the trees, these people went and hugged the trees very tight, so that the logging process could not be continued. So after many days of protest, the government cancelled the company's logging permit. So they had given a permit, right, to cut the ash trees to make agricultural equipments and all that. All those permits were cancelled because of the struggle that these villagers, or the love these villagers had shown towards the trees. And from the beginning of the Chipko movement, it mainly concentrated on ecological issues such as depletion of the forest cover and soil erosion. So what they did was, the main aim of Chipko movement was to prevent soil erosion and to thereby also to prevent the logging of the forest or the depletion of the forest. So if trees are there, then the erosion of the soil can be prevented, and also the flooding can be prevented. So that was their main aim. So this was about Chipko movement. So what did they do here? A particular person, the credit goes to Chandi Prasad Bhatt, who actually told the villagers that we need to safeguard the trees, and that is when they went and hugged the trees very tight, preventing them from being logged by these industrial sectors. And looking at all the protests which had run for several days, the government finally decided to cancel the permits that were given in order to cut these trees. So that is when the Chipko movement actually came into existence in the year 1973. And nowadays, Chipko movement, and actually in 1973, this Chipko movement actually spread to different parts of the country as well, wherein people started to follow this in order to save the environment. So this was about Chipko movement. So this is Chandi Prasad Bhatt, for whom the credit of Chipko movement goes to. Next, talking about one more movement, that is the Silent Valley movement. So Silent Valley, it is a national park, which is the Silent Valley National Park, which is located in the rainforest and the tropical moist evergreen forest in India, especially in the Nilgiri hills of Palakkad district in Kerala, that is in South India. So the Silent Valley National Park is an undisturbed forest which is rich in vegetation, that is flora as well as fauna, and it contains, and it mainly comprises of rainforest and tropical moist evergreen forest located mainly in Nilgiri's hills of Palakkad district in Kerala, that is in South India. And this Silent Valley, actually this particular national park got its attention because of its rich flora and fauna diversity. It is a biodiversity hotspot, and moreover, since it is a rainforest, there are lots of different species of plants and animals growing there. So that is also one of the reasons, but the main reason for this particular Silent Valley to gain attention was because of the successive struggle of the native people against the proposed hydroelectric project in the valley. So the Kerala State Electricity Board, what they did was they put forth a project. They proposed a project wherein they want to build they wanted to build a hydroelectric power plant in that particular forest area. Now, if we need to build a hydroelectric power plant, lot of trees have to be put down, or it has to be logged, they have to be uprooted. Imagine the forest entire ecosystem will become imbalanced. So that is when people started protesting continuously against this project, and that is when the whole world came to know about Silent Valley. Until then, it was not known to many of the people. So this project actually was of a great threat to Silent Valley, which eventually, or during the course of time, it gave rise to many environmentalist social movement in the 1970s, and it was called as the Save Silent Valley. So people under the banner Save Silent Valley, they made many marches and protests in order to protect, or in order to stop this particular hydroelectric power plant project, in order to save the Silent Valley. So what would have happened if, now you could have just questioned, if hydroelectric power plant comes, it is of use to the people, right? But we might think that it is of use to the people. But of course, if it can provide electricity to many of the houses, but long term, it can cause a lot of negative effect on the wildlife population, the plant population, and the human population as well. Mainly, what would have happened if this particular hydroelectric project would have come up means, obviously a dam would have been built up, some constructions would have taken place there, and the felling of trees would have, lakhs together of trees would have been lost from that particular area. Therefore, the Silent Valley Reservoir, so it has a particular river there that flows in the Silent Valley, that would have submerged about 8.3 kilometer square of land would have completely been submerged. Imagine 8.3 kilometer being submerged means how many plants and animal life is lost there, right? So that, and also this Silent Valley is a home for one of the important species of monkey, which is called as the lion-tailed macaque. These lion-tailed macaque also, population would also be threatened. So therefore, the complete ecosystem would have become imbalanced. The rains would have got altered. Again, there, because of the felling of trees, the seasonal rains that they receive, that would have got altered. The climate would have got altered, and who knows, the entire forest itself would have got disturbed. So that is when the people started to protest against this particular project under the banner Save Silent Valley in the year 1970s. So the Silent Valley movement, actually, how did the government actually stop this particular project? Because we all know that once a project is put forth by the government, a lot of protest keeps on taking place, and the government do not pay heed to it, right? They never bother about it, because the only thing of is improving the infrastructure, improving the country and all that. So why did the Silent Valley movement became fruitful? So there are a number of movements, that environmental related movements were organized by the people in different parts of our country, but Silent Valley actually was successful. So what was the reason behind that? It was because of the reports that were submitted by a plant breeder, a geneticist, and a agriculturalist by the name Dr. M.S. Swaminathan, who said that a lot of problems will arise if this particular hydroelectric power plant project is started in the Silent Valley, and it can completely disturb the ecosystem. So based on whatever report he submitted, because he was a very good environmentalist, so based on that, whatever report he submitted, finally he also suggested that around 389.52 square kilometers of land should be made into a biosphere reserve. So in this 389.52 square kilometers of land, it included 89.52 square kilometers of the Silent Valley forest, then 80 square kilometers of the new Amarambalam forest, then 120 square kilometers of Attapadi in Kerala, and 100 square kilometers in Kunda, that is in Tamil Nadu. So all these were the reserve forests. So because of his report, government decided to develop all these reserve forests into a national rainforest biosphere reserve. Now, when all these regions have become a national rainforest biosphere reserve, it is very difficult to bring out any project because they'll become a hotspot and wherein no activities has to be conducted other than any research work in these particular areas. So no activities, no construction activities, nothing can be done here because it has been notified as a national rainforest biosphere reserve. So therefore the credit for the Silent Valley movement goes to the people behind it, including the report submitted by Dr. M.S. Swaminathan. So this is Dr. M.S. Swaminathan, who is a plant breeder. He has contributed to Green Revolution also, that is for the improvement of agriculture. Now whatever hybrid varieties that we are using of, that is cereals and grains, it is because of his contribution towards the field of agriculture. So he was a great environmentalist as well. Finally, the struggle of the people forced the central government in the year 1983, wherein the central government in the year 1983 instructed the state government to completely stop the project or to abandon the project. And on November 15th, the Silent Valley Forest was declared as a national park. Now, because it is a national park, only safaris, all those things can be carried out there, but no construction or infrastructure work that will disturb the forest. So that is how the central government ordered the state government of Kerala to stop this particular project. And on September 1st, 1986, Silent Valley National Park was designated as the core area of the Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve. So, core area. So, the forest is divided into many areas. So, when you travel the area that you see, no, that is not the core area. That is a different. Then we have the buffer area where the scientific studies and all that can be carried out. Then we have the core area. Core area of the forest means no human beings are allowed there. All the animals and plants are allowed to be growing naturally undisturbed and no activities are allowed there. So that is the core area. Now once it has been designated as the core area, now the government cannot take up any project there. So that is how the Silent Valley movement became completely fruitful. So this was about Silent Valley movement. So next, talking about the Bishnois of Rajasthan. So the Bishnois of Rajasthan, they are a community that is there in Rajasthan, and these people actually, they worship the environment and they love the animals in such a way that they treat them as their own children. So the Bishnois of Rajasthan, Bishnoi is actually a part of Hinduism, and it was a religion that was founded by Guru Maharaj Jambaji in 1485 AD in Marwar, that is in the Jodhpur desert region of western Rajasthan, wherein he actually put forth for this particular Bishnoi community, he put all the communities have their own principles, right? Just like that for the Bishnoi community also, Guru Maharaj Jambaji, he put forth 29 principles. And in this 29 principles, most of the principles were talking about or related to caring of the environment, and hence the people of this community, they worship Mother Nature and therefore are against harming trees and animals. So that is why even today the Bishnois of Rajasthan, they treat animals and plants as their own children and they never try to harm it, and they will not even allow the other people or the tourists from harming these animals and trees in their particular region because of the 29 principles which they actually very strictly follow. So what happened here among the Bishnoi community, that is in Rajasthan, so there was a king, that is Maharaja of Jodhpur. So this king of Jodhpur, he actually wanted to build a palace. So what he did was, To build a palace, earlier days there was no cement, bricks and all that. So they used to use the natural materials that was available from the forest. So obviously they wanted a lot of trees. So this king, in order to build a palace, he ordered his soldiers to gather wood from the forest regions near the village of Kejarli, where Bishnoi community was residing. And these people, that is in that particular region, the Bishnoi people, because of their love towards the environment, they grew a lot of trees, especially the acacia trees. Now the name, can you see here, the name of the village is also based on the number of trees, the species that are present there. So they grew a lot of kejri trees. So that is why the name of the village is Kejarli, that is acacia trees. Why only acacia trees? Because first of all, we know that Rajasthan, there is scarcity of water. And acacia is one such plant which can adapt to live in very scarce water condition also. So that is why they grew a lot of acacia trees there, which they looked after like their own kids. When the king's men approached that particular area in order to cut the trees, the Bishnois, they were furious and they protested against the soldiers, wherein they tried to stop them from cutting the tree. But what these soldiers did was, they had to follow the orders given by the king, that is the royal orders, right? So what they did was, they killed the people whoever came against their work or whoever was a hindrance to their particular work of cutting the trees. So here among these villagers, there was a particular villager of the Bishnoi community and her name was Amrita Devi. So Amrita Devi, she was the one who actually could not bear the destruction caused to the sacred trees, and she decided to encourage all the other people of the villagers to hug the trees, proclaiming, "A chopped head is cheaper than a felled tree." So what she said was, meaning, cut a head, it's also fine, but we won't allow you to cut the tree. So that is what they did. So the soldiers, they got agitated. First of all, they had to follow the king's order. They couldn't avoid that. And if they go back, then it will be a problem to the soldiers as well. So what these people did was, the soldiers, they beheaded the villagers. That is, they cut the head of the villagers whoever were hugging the trees. Therefore, a total of 363 Bishnoi people were killed during this particular act. And finally, the message of this particular incident, it reached the king and he rushed to that particular spot. So the king got quite emotional because 363 is not a number. Even killing one person is also not good, right? But here 363 Bishnois were killed during this particular course of cutting the trees. So he actually felt very bad because that was not his intention. His intention was only to collect trees for building the palace. But the soldiers, they got agitated because they were hindered from being followed, because they were prevented or they were disturbed from following the king's order to cut the trees. So what he did was, immediately the king went to the village and he asked the villagers sorry, or he apologized the villagers, and he ordered the soldiers to stop cutting these acacia trees, and also he designated the Bishnoi state as a protected area wherein he forbade harm to trees and animals. Finally, he passed a rule, that is, wherever the Bishnois are there, that will be a protected area and no people should disturb nature in that particular protected area. So this was, the 363 Bishnois gave their life in order to save the environment, which made the king realize his mistake and ordered to stop cutting the trees. So in memory of the 363 Bishnois who actually died during this particular protest, a number of kejri trees were planted around that particular area in the village, and even today it is standing there lush and rich and green in color. being a house or home for many animal life, and every year the Bishnoi community people assemble there or gather there in order to remember the sacrifices made by these 363 Bishnoi people. So this is how the love for the nature by the Bishnoi communities actually led to the Bishnoi movement, wherein now even today trees are being worshipped, animals are being worshipped, so among the Bishnoi community. So this was about this session wherein how three important environmental movements during the earlier times actually led to the safeguard of the environment or the ecosystem or the forest. So we learnt about the Chipko movement, wherein the hugging of trees by the villagers of Uttar Pradesh. Then we learnt about the Silent Valley movement, wherein the people protested against the building of hydroelectric power plant in the Silent Valley forest, which led to, so their protest and the report given by Swaminathan led to the conversion of the Silent Valley project or the Silent Valley or designation of the Silent Valley forest as a national park or a biosphere reserve. And also we learnt about the Bishnois of Rajasthan, how their protest, how 363 people of that particular community contributed or sacrificed their lives in order to save the environment, which led to the saving of thousands to thousands of trees. And even today in this particular region of Rajasthan, the trees and the animals are worshipped. So this was about the three movements or environmental related movements. So this was about this session. I hope you understood this session. So in the next coming session, we shall talk about environmental ethics. So each and everyone has their own ethics in life, which we need to follow, which we need to at least try to follow, right? So likewise, we should have some ethics or norms towards nature as well. So what is the role of Indian and other religion cultures in environmental conservation, wherein a lot of different ethical values have been put forth to the people. So we shall study about that in the next coming session. So we shall meet again in the coming session. Thank you.